much for joining. I thought I'd do a quick video on safety first ratio and Sharpe ratios. And Sharpe ratio and investors and portfolio managers, they use a variety of risk adjusted performance measures to evaluate their investment opportunities. Two of the most commonly used ratios are safety first ratio, SFRatio, and Sharpe ratio. And while both help assess how well an investment compensates for risk, they actually serve different purposes. The safety first ratio focuses on downside protection. It is used by investors who have a minimum required return and want to minimize the risk of falling below that threshold. It measures how well an investment's expected return exceeds the required return relative to its risk volatility. The lower the SF ratio, the higher the probability of not meeting the threshold return. It's particularly useful for retirement funds, endowments or pension funds or risk-averse investors. The Sharpe ratio, on the other hand, measures overall risk-adjusted returns. It evaluates how much excess return an investment generates per unit of total risk measured by standard deviation. Unlike the SF ratio, the Sharpe ratio does not focus specifically on downside risk. It treats both positive and negative volatility equally. It's commonly used to compare risk-adjusted performance of different investments, evaluate whether a higher return portfolio is worth the additional risk, and assesses mutual funds, hedge funds, and asset allocation strategies. In general, if your primary concern is avoiding a shortfall below a required return, use SF ratio. If you want to maximize returns for a given level of risk, use Sharpe ratio. Usually both ratios, the higher the better, because return over risk is larger, which is preferred. So let's do an example. For example, if we start with the SF ratio, let's assume our portfolio return is 10%, and we say our minimum required return is 5, that is set by us, is our threshold, 5%. And let's say our portfolio standard deviation is 8%. This is the volatility, the risk. Then it would give you an SF ratio of 0.625. The interpretation would be a safety first ratio of 0.625 suggests that the portfolio has a moderate margin of safety. The higher the ratio, the lower the probability of falling below the required rate of return. If we look at Sharpe ratio, let's say portfolio 10%, your risk-free rate 3%, and let's say our standard deviation 8% would give you 0.75. As you can see, it's actually the same calculation. However, 8%, however, here the threshold or the risk-free rate is different. A Sharpe ratio of 0.875 means that the portfolio generates 8.75 units of excess return per unit of risk. Again, the higher, the better. Thank you so much for listening. I see you in another video. Bye-bye.